Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying your work week. I wanted to send out this quick video to kind of outline and go through the 7 parts of your MTSS paper. I know we've talked about the SAM assessment quite a bit and that you should be collecting data, but many of you are probably at that point where you're like, so what do I do with this data? And so I thought I would just get on real quick and share a little bit of what the paper looks like and how you can start really taking what you've learned in the data collection and putting it to good use in the paper. So part 1 of your MTSS paper is going to be an overview of description of either the school or the district that you're reviewing. So whatever you thought about when you did the SAM assessment is what you describe in part 1. You're going to open the paper by saying, I currently work at blank, blank, blank school. Here's a little bit about the demographics, ethnicity, programs, IEP, free and reduced lunch. Tell a little bit based on the school report card or what you know about the district. And then a second paragraph in part 1 is going to be who took the SAM assessment. Describe them, describe their positions. So I took the SAM assessment for my school. I currently am a blank, blank, blank teacher, or I'm currently a dean of schools in this school. And then I also collected information using the SAM from the MTSS coordinator. She has been with the district for 5 years, or I gave it to a couple teachers, or we collectively did it together. So paragraph 1 describes your school and demographics and gives a little background. Paragraph 2 in part 1 really outlines, so where did you get this data from, and a little bit about them. The last little paragraph in part 1 is going to be your very big global overview of your findings. And so, for instance, you're going to write a statement like, based on the review of the SAM, the domain of leadership seems to be our strength as a district. And you can say a statement with it like, which isn't a surprise because we've had the same principal for 13 years. Or, and then you're going to say one area to enhance so far is communication. And that could be because of the structures the structures and policies that are in place for communicating with staff, or the inconsistency in leadership has left us with some communication issues. Big, big global statements. That last paragraph is usually just a couple sentences. That's the end of part 1. Everyone can do that right now. Part 2 then is going to dive a little bit deeper into the SAM assessment findings, and you're actually going to go back and reference a little bit the actual indicators. You're going to save the really big reference for them for parts 3 through 5. But in part 2, you're going to give an overview of, based on the 3 people that took this assessment, or, my assessment and my interview with these 2 people, here were the areas that we found as the very strongest domain. The strongest domain was communication. And in that domain, the indicator of blank really was the highest score. And so there's multiple questions, all in communication domain, but what was the highest score that really put it to that strength? Other areas that were close to having the strength were domain blank, and domain blank. And you list out for every single one of the 6 indicators where they kind of fell on from strongest, close to strongest, kind of strong, and then you finish it with our very weakest domain, which we look for enhancement, is data evaluation. This domain was weaker for us because of the indicators of blank and blank. What really drew down your scores in that domain? Section 2 is usually a couple paragraphs. A paragraph or 2 might be, your findings of the strongest, kind of a paragraph about the middle ones, and then a paragraph about your weak area or your weakest domain. Don't get too much detail by saying like every question, here's the ranking. That's not what part 2 is about. It's giving that whole overview of the 6 domains and where they fall in relationship to each other. Then part 3, 4, and 5 are very similar. I would say set them up exactly the same and kind of follow the formula, I guess, that you want to set up. You are going to describe in each one 2 of the domains. The first one, you're going to do leadership and building capacity with infrastructure. Part 4, you're going to look at communication and data-driven problem solving. Part 5, you're going to look at 3-tiered instruction and data evaluation. When you are doing these parts, you want to talk pretty extensively about those two domains. You can link them together or you can pair them apart. For part 3, I'm going to talk about leadership, and then I might also say capacity was built through this way with our leadership, and that's how you can weave them together. Or I'm going to go through a whole section about leadership of why was it a strength, why was it a weakness, what score did you get, and pull out evidence from the SAM of saying, here's what led to that higher score, here's what led to a lower score, here's something that a lot of us just were having difficulty answering. We didn't understand the language of SAM, so I wasn't sure how accurate that data was. Those types of insights are shared in these sections. That usually is a paragraph or 2 per domain, and then you want to write on a chart, or you can do it in narrative paragraph. What would you do next in those domains as the school leader? You need to have a 3-year plan in each one of these parts outlining, so based on what I learned, here's a goal that I would be working on, here are the action plans I would do, and here's how I would progress monitor that to know that I'm successful as a leader in building. You can do that in two or three different ways, to be honest. The first one is write a goal for each year with action plans for that year and a way to monitor in that year. Or you can say, this is my big goal. I'm going to take 3 years to do it. Year 1, here are my actions. Year 2, here are my actions. Year 3, here are my actions. And how would I monitor that for each one of those 3 years? So depending on what you want to improve as a school leader, kind of depends on how you want to lay that out. I would say 90% of the students, when I've taught this course before, do that in a chart format in that section. They have the plan kind of built out in a chart. You're going to do the same thing for part 4 with those 2 domains, same thing with part 5. So you're going to have at least 3-year plans, 1 in each of those sections. You might end up with 6 if you do a plan for leadership in part 3 and a plan for building capacity in part 3, or you can merge them together and have a joint goal that would build both of those domains. Once you get done with part 5, 3, 4, and 5 again are structured the same. You're talking about the domains, doing your 3-year plan. Then part 6 is for you to reflect back on everything you just wrote in the plans that you would do as a leader and say, so here's my, here's what I think I should be evaluated on. If I'm the leader of this school implementing all of these goals and plans, here's what would make me show that I am successful as the school leader. And write your SMART goal of what you would be evaluated on throughout this process if you were that building leader working on these things pretty diligently. You need to have a SMART goal, and you need to kind of discuss what would be evidence of success with that SMART goal. And then part 7 is going to be doing something after your presentation in class. You were going to present this in kind of a mock meeting with your superintendent. We're going to role play. One of you will be a superintendent. One of you will be you talking about your MTSS plan. And you're going to have about a half hour, because that's all the time that superintendents really have, 20 to 30 minutes, to tell them, here are my findings, and here's what I think my school needs to work on, and here is how I'm going to do it. And that is going to be the key. When you finish all of that, then you're going to write a 1-paragraph reflection of how fluent were you? How, reflective in that conversation were you able to discuss with another peer who is role playing to be your superintendent and has some questions to ask you that I'm going to give? How well did you do? I knew the information well, but I kind of freaked out and didn't know how to answer it. Or I knew the information well, but I wasn't getting to the point and being concise, and I rambled and got cut off. Or I did a phenomenally well. I genuinely want to go talk to my superintendent about my findings. I have these 3 things that I want to do. I was clear. I was concise. Part 7 is just your reflection after our last class or last 2 classes whenever you present. That's your whole paper, and you can put a cover page on it. Remember, if you are citing somebody's specific words in the SAM, like, my peer, Sarah Mum, did the SAM, and she stated this as evidence, that does have to be APA cited. If in your action plans you are citing a specific book that you all want to study, you do need to cite that as well in your resources. Not going to have tons of citations, but if you do need to have that resource page. I hope this helps get you started. Please don't hesitate. I always encourage my students, write down all 6 headings. You can leave 7 for the end and put it on there. And as you're starting to type, think, where does this best fit? Put it in that section and just start throwing stuff in the sections to get going on the paper and process. You absolutely can do part 1 immediately. Part 2, depending on where you're at with SAM data collection, you can do, and then start rolling into the other parts. At any time, if you want to just send me a draft and here's how I've outlined it. What are your thoughts? Am I missing anything? Or these topics are in this part. Do you agree? Feel free to shoot it over to me and I will take a look. There are still a couple sessions open if you want to do the sign-in for a one-on-one conference to talk through some stuff. Or you can always text or call and I'll answer your questions. I hope you guys enjoy your work week and have a super Halloween. I know it gets kind of crazy at schools during Halloween, but as a baby of Halloween, which I was born on, it is the week of my life. I love it. So I hope you enjoy it as much as I'm going to. Bye, guys.